1. We have a new neighbor in our apartment who also does snow removal maintenance, and I'm pretty sure he hates us. If any of you are in the upper Midwest, you know that yesterday Wisconsin and Minnesota got dumped on with snow. Our snow removal protocols are that if we get 3+ inches of snow, we have to move our cars from the parking lot onto the street by 8 a.m. so they can plow. The plowing company that the apartment owner has hired has contracts with many other places in the area, so they usually don't get to our parking spots until later afternoon, but we move our cars in the morning just in case. A couple of months ago it was 7:45 a.m. and my husband was just getting his snow boots on to move the car. We hear aggressive knocking on the door. My husband answers, and it's our new neighbor who also does sidewalk shoveling and snowblowing maintenance. Older guy, probably in his 60s, he shouts, "You have to move your car!" My confused husband just says, "Okay," blows it off even though it's not 8 a.m. yet, and goes to move the car, all while getting scowled at by this neighbor while he snowblows. Fast forward to yesterday, we get a crap ton of snow overnight, and by 7:45 a.m., it's still coming down pretty hard. At this point, we aren't sure if we should move until the snow stops. Many cars are out of the parking lot, but a few cars are still there, covered in snow, including ours. My husband starts to get his outdoor gear on, gets distracted feeding our toddler breakfast, and 8:30 a.m. comes around the corner. More obnoxious, aggressive knocking on the door. He answers the door, same neighbor, still yelling, "You have to move your car! Next time you're getting towed!" My husband just says, "Okay," again, and shuts the door. But we overhear this man yelling to our neighbors, "It's always these people." Seriously? Yeah, we were behind schedule and not out by 8 a.m. I take full accountability for that. That's on us. But you're going to threaten us? And only us with being towed when we weren't the only tenants running behind schedule? And then talk about us to the other neighbors. I was flabbergasted. We're adults, and we can't have a conversation about it. I would have been happy to apologize for the delay, explaining our confusion, and express that we don't appreciate the targeted threats talking behind our back. We've done nothing wrong to this man and never spoken to him otherwise. I've seen cars that have failed to move while plowing has occurred, and they have never been towed, by the way. They're just plowed into their spots. And the kicker, our parking lot didn't get plowed until 4 p.m. I had been simmering from the conversation all day, but when I saw the plow finally in our area 8 hours later, I was fuming. I'm frustrated. What would you all do? Would you confront him, report him to the landlord, or just let it go? I don't want this dude to hate us any more than he already does, but winter is far from over up north and I don't want to tolerate his behavior again. Easy, what you do is you get up earlier than him, get out, move your car, then you go pound on his door and tell him you've got to move your car. It's always you. Do that for a week, see how he likes it. 2. We own 3 dogs, 2 labs and a cane corso. My sister moved back in with me and my dad and brought her dog with her. So not ideal, but that's what we got. We have enough space to accommodate, so no big deal. Unfortunately, my neighbor across the street seems to dislike this. He's called the police on us about 30 times. Now, just to be clear, these dogs are not an issue. They're never outside for more than 3 minutes. Yes, they bark, but it's very little and only when someone walks by, like every other dog. I've asked every single neighbor we have if they have any issue with our dogs, and they all said absolutely not, and some didn't even know we had them. Not to mention, they almost all own dogs themselves. I told everyone I spoke to please be honest and don't hold back. So I don't think anyone was just being nice. We've lived here over 20 years and have decent relationships with all our direct neighbors, and everyone on the block knows us by name and talks to us fairly regularly. I swear I'm trying my best to be neighborly here. I put up a privacy fence, all the dogs have been through obedience training, and I have collars so I can beep them when and if barking gets out of hand while they're outside. They're trained to come to the door when beeped. The dogs are asleep by 7:30 p.m. My dad is retired and they follow his schedule. I don't want anyone to think I'm some trash neighbor who has his dogs tied to the stake in the front yard, barking all day. I swear we're good, responsible dog owners here. Now, my issue is this. I happen to heavily suspect my neighbor across the street I don't have direct proof he won't speak to me, like won't answer the door when I knock, and I rarely see him outside to talk to him. Although I'm a bit nervous about doing that, as he seems slightly unhinged. The police say he's calling anonymously from a blocked number. Every time the police have been here, the dogs have been quiet. This guy is starting to get a bit weird. He used to just call and say the dogs have been barking for an hour straight in the yard. Total lie. However, now he's escalating. He's threatened to sue the police department. He's called animal control to, I guess, have the dogs taken, and now he's claiming the dogs are aggressive. Now, the police have been here maybe 20 times. They've met the dogs, petted them, said there's no issue, but there's nothing they can do. They have to respond to calls. They drive by our house at least once a day. Dogs are never outside or barking when they do. They're getting tired of dealing with this as well. My sister has a number from a guy on the force, and he's begun texting us when this guy calls in to let us know. They told us to file harassment charges, and overall they've been helpful to an extent. My problem is this: I can't prove it's this guy. In order to file the harassment charge, I have to explain how I know the identity of the person I'm charging, which of course makes total sense 99.9% of the cases. The police claim there's no way to find out who's calling. I find that hard to believe, as it's 2025 and everything is saved somewhere. Now, I'm sure it's not as simple as just calling dispatch and looking into it, but I'm sure there's some process they can go through to unmask it. There just doesn't seem to be much will, maybe because legal privacy liability reasons. I don't know. We're just at our wits' end here. I want the cops to stop knocking on my door and looking over my fence and driving slowly past my house multiple times a day. Especially when they keep saying we're doing nothing wrong and they haven't heard a single dog bark all the times they've driven by. Only when they knock on the door, of course. It's giving us a bad look, like people are going to start thinking I'm selling drugs here. Besides that, my number one fear is this guy is going to start to get brazen when he's clearly not getting the response he wants. Like, I'm getting really scared he's going to throw a few poisoned meatballs over the fence, or something worse. And I love my dog dearly. Like, I will kill for this animal if she ends up getting hurt. What's really bothering me about this is how this guy is able to turn the police into a tool of harassment, and they have to follow along, not blaming them. I get they have to check on every call, but I just wish they would stop coming here for anonymous calls about the dogs. My question to you all is this: what can and should I do here? Any of you know any loopholes on how I can get the info on who's calling? I'm in South Jersey, if that makes any difference. What would you do in this situation? My sister wants to start calling on the police to do welfare checks at 2 a.m. on them. Well, don't listen to your sister for a start. Maybe call them and say we heard screaming or something. We'd be anonymous, of course. We wouldn't try to make it sound like anything dangerous was going on, just express our concern that someone may be hurt, and to just knock and check on them. But I'm not sure about rolling in the mud with this guy, and again, I'm only 99% sure who it is. And of course, I could be wrong. I'd hate for someone innocent to get caught up in this. I just want to make it stop. Any advice would be super appreciated, and of course, I'll try to answer any questions. Thanks. Hellfreezer's note: firstly, no, don't start calling the police on him. All it takes is for you to screw up once that he finds out you're the one doing it, then suddenly, hey, congratulations, you're now the bad guy. Now, standard advice here is if you don't already have cameras, make sure you've got cameras. I would keep an eye on the doggies when they're outside if I were you. Unfortunately, while it is possible the police could trace this guy's number and find out where he is, then you'd have a good idea of who's actually doing the calling. The police would also be able to contact the phone company and find out what the number is from that, because it still has to go through the company, so that the phone company knows what the number is. But it's, same kind of red tape, getting permission to do it. They'd really have to know there was enough of a threat and that it was coming from the same person every time. Phone company and find out what the number is, because it's not... The number still has to go through the phone company, so it would be visible to the company itself. You do mention in the Reddit comments that you're not the first people this person has targeted. Is there any way you could get in contact with the other people? They might have more information and they might be able to help you firmly identify him, which would allow you to take legal action. It's just unfortunate these tools that provide people with anonymity that can be used for very valid and positive reasons are also susceptible to abuse by nasty people. I'm so sorry you're dealing with this. But the cameras are a good idea. Keep an eye on things and give the doggies extra pets for me, please. 3. I posted a while back about my neighbour, but it wasn't that great for context or anything, so I want to try again. I moved into my apartment 2 years ago as of October 1st, and this 40-something man had no problems with my ex-boyfriend. He'd stand and talk to him till the cows came home, but any time I tried to interact, he'd grunt or glare at me. Now, I don't know if he knew I was trans from the start, but I'm thinking that's what's up. I have a basement apartment in one of them goofy triplex things, so I only have one way in and out, and he'd lock the door behind me not 2 seconds after I'm out the door and glare at me through his window. Before I could even get a second key cut, he was telling me I better effing hurry up and get the key cut, but again, nothing mean to my ex-boyfriend. But anyways, a few weeks ago, we had this stupid big snowstorm here in Ontario, and everyone was miserable because of it, right? And we don't have that big of a parking lot for the two of us in the house that drive, being him and I, and mine's just a little wee Chrysler 200, and his is a great big Ford full cab extended bed pickup truck. Compensating. You know, the ones as big as a Sherman tank, but anyways, he left me a sticky note on my front door. This is where some might remember reading, "Dear inconsiderate and unintelligent, you will move your car so I can pass." Now mind you, my car is half buried in the snow back at this point, to give him more than enough room to get out. But when talking to my new partner in the entryway about it, he stepped out into the hallway puffing his chest and trying to act all big and tough, and I told him he could have just knocked and been civil with me. That's all I asked, to which he shoots back, "Go F yourself." And I wasn't having it, so I told him to quit being a dick, you balding prick. Which of course set him off, but I wasn't expecting him to get into my new partner's face and threaten both of us over it. I barely had time to get the car started before he was outside with me and punching my windows hard enough to rock the car, telling me, "If you want to talk like that, get out of the car and I'll put you in your place. And you want to talk to me like that, you'll be sorry." He tried to walk back to the house, but after that I did not want him in there for the sake of my other neighbor, skinny little lady, and my partner and I, so I lay on the horn, bringing him back, and that's when he punched my driver's side, screaming, "Come out, you tranny freak." After that, I grabbed my Johnson bar for the car and told him point blank, I'm calling the cops, and if he punches my car one more time, he'll end up with a cracked skull, and boy did he ever move fast after that comment. But even when the cops showed up, he was acting the same with them, just being a right prick. The week after that happened, we had a lot of other stuff happen too, like the heat being turned off even though everyone in the house knows about my budgies. Oh. My new partner's gift for me was stolen from inside the entryway. The front door was purposely broken, both handle and deadbolt, in the time it took me to get gas. Not to mention him and his dogs thundering around all the time. Like the dogs are no problem at all, I can live with that, but when you're going out of your way to make every step a stomp, grow up, buddy. He's been letting his 3 dogs on his back porch, which is right above my shed, caking all my things in dog pee, like my barbecue and patio chairs. Don't get me started on the concrete front stoop either, because he'll let them pee there too, and leave it to freeze. Then he gets huffy when the snow removal guys salt down the front stoop and walk away. Anyways, it's just been a mess the last few weeks, and I needed to rant before I lost another screw. Also, he drunkenly texts our other neighbor, flirting with her and commenting on her body. Not too long after, we called the police after the threats and stolen package. He texted her saying he doesn't get why they were called on him twice. He's a good neighbor. Hellfreezer's note, well, I think he removed all doubt that his issue with you is that you're trans. Whatever his motivation for that hatred is irrelevant. He doesn't get to be yelling at you, harassing you, punching your car windows? He's lucky that several things didn't happen there. The only positive side there is, as he doesn't have enough sense to calm down when the police are around, when you inevitably have to call them again, they'll probably arrest him. I would, however, if I were you, report that behavior to your landlord. It's unacceptable. It's making the building look bad. You have the right to a safe environment to live in, and your neighbor is making it an unsafe environment. So report everything to the landlord. Maybe get a copy of the police report if you can. 4. My husband and I moved into our current house in mid-2018. And the neighbor to our right is just the absolute worst, and I'm afraid of her getting even worse. We are not in an HOA. We have had absolutely no issues with the neighbor, also elderly, on our left. He has never told us of any issues that he has had with us. Very first thing she ever said to us when we moved in was how the previous homeowner built her driveway into her yard and how horrible she is. Not a great sign, but we were young and didn't have many options in our price range and had to dedicate to a spot fast. She has yelled at us over leaves, with both of us working full-time. We always get to them, but apparently not fast enough for her retired lifestyle. Every year she blows them back into our yard because she has no trees, and then complains about them not being cleaned up. 3 years ago, I shattered my ankle and had to get surgery. Ooh, ouch. I screamed for help from my driveway right in front of 2 of her windows. Never got a response and had to drag my way to my phone that I threw when I fell. 2 weeks later, I got surgery and had to have my husband help me out of the car. She complained to him about the leaves as he grabbed my crutches. Last year, she called the city about our grass, complaining we haven't mowed. They gave us a mail-in notice without checking. The only spot that wasn't mowed was where we had a branch pickup, roughly a square foot of grass. That was mostly moss and about 3 long sprigs. She has called the cops on us numerous times for things we didn't even do. She claimed we played loud music at 5 or 6 a.m., which is funny, because I actually leave for work in that time frame, and I specifically leave my radio on low every night to make sure it's quiet in the mornings. The cops have stopped by our actual house twice. First time my husband explained it's not us, and the cop left. Second time he was actually listening to music, and the cop agreed that it was a reasonable volume and gave us his business card when my husband informed him that she has done this before. Another time I left for work in the morning to find another cop sitting outside of our house around 5:30 a.m. We heard nothing from this cop, so I assume he rightfully found nothing wrong. Today I came home to find her throwing sticks in our yard. I pulled into the driveway to have her literally walking in the driveway to throw sticks into the middle of my front yard. When she heard me get out of the car, she scurried off to the other side of her house and left. Relatively minor, but with how much crap she gives us, it immediately put me in a bad mood. Now here's what I'm actually afraid of. I'm currently pregnant, 5 months, and have anxiety that has only gotten more amplified by the current situation. She has already proved she blames us for everything, and calls the cops on us for every little thing that happens in the whole neighborhood. Even though the neighbors kitty corner have actually been arrested for things and cause issues all the time. I'm absolutely terrified she's going to up what she does when she finds out we have a baby and calls CPS. I would not put it past her with how often she's called the cops on us. I've started a log of the interactions I've had with her, and I've told my husband I want to put cameras up in our front and backyard. Damn right. What else can I do to try and protect ourselves in case she tries something vile like that? Hellfreezer's note. Good start with the cameras, always wise to do in these situations. You want to start keeping a note as well of anything she does that's kind of shady, even small stuff. You did mention, I believe, in one of the comments on Reddit that you already have records with the police. The officer did give your husband the business card, so that's good. Fact of the matter is, the police know that when she calls, she's a nuisance caller. She's calling simply to harass you. Now, I'm not sure if a restraining order in the traditional sense, as in making someone keep their distance, would help. But in the UK, we have something called a harassment injunction. And it is possible, at least in the UK, that if someone is using the police to make harassing phone calls, or is using the police to harass a neighbor, that they can be prevented as part of the injunction from doing that. And if they did it again, they would get into legal trouble for it. That doesn't, of course, prevent them from calling the police for legitimate reasons. I'm not sure if there's a similar thing in the US, or wherever you're located. I'm assuming the US. I could, of course, be wrong. But it might be worth looking into for your sake to see if that's possible. She certainly has an established history, and she's definitely known to the police by this point, obviously. Best of luck with it. But for now, you need to do your best to try and put her out of your mind. As I say, keep a note. Got the cameras and everything up. The cameras will definitely hold you in good stead. I wouldn't have thought of this myself, but one of the commenters on Reddit suggested nanny cams in the house. If you're comfortable with it, just in case you are worried about CPS. But as I say, she has a history of frivolous, harassing calls. Even if she did call CPS, it's unlikely anything's going to happen. But congratulations on the baby, and I hope your family will be very, very happy, and that the old lady heads off to a retirement village somewhere or goes to live on a farm. 5. I used to have a chill neighbor living right across from my unit, but his weed smoke always used to seep into my unit, and the smell was sharper than a roadkill skunk carcass decaying for weeks. He wasn't the type to crack a window or balcony door, or to turn on his exhaust, I guess. It was whatever, but honestly, when he moved out, I was kind of relieved to be able to breathe fresh air. However, fast forward over a year, and the new tenants, who I believe are an elderly mother, probably 50 plus, and her son, probably 18 plus, have been causing me some serious disturbance. It's really just her son who rages like crazy and has really bad manners, and she's always trying to defuse the situation. At first, the only disturbance was the son banging on the door for like 5 to 10 minutes straight at 2 a.m. to wake up his mom to open the door when he would forget his keys. It would sound like it was my door being banged on, so obviously it would startle me. And sometimes when the door was opened, you could hear him complaining. I think he had a girl, maybe sister or girlfriend, and she would also complain when someone took too long to open the door when knocking, though hers was during the daytime. This would happen like 2 or 3 times a week. Just from their mannerism, I could tell they had kind of a toxic home environment with lack of respect for their elders. Fast forward a year later. The banging on the door rarely ever happens. However, now there are occasional confrontations where there is yelling, swearing, raging, banging, and things being thrown. The young man goes Super Saiyan, and the lady always seems to be keeping her composure, trying to defuse the situation. You can hear him lashing out at her, and honestly, it is really traumatic and scary. There was even one time I heard the lady say, "Well, I have to defend myself," which indicates there was maybe something physical going on too. For the past few months, I've been brushing these occasional occurrences off, because living in a shared living environment like a condo apartment, occasional situations are expected and understandable. People are living their lives, and life isn't always pretty. I had some crazy periods in my family life too growing up, so I can understand. However, today my perspective on the situation is changing. It's around 3 p.m. and I'm sleeping and having a dream. In my dream, I'm in some luxury high-rise and I hear my neighbor banging things and raging. I'm like, WTF, this sounds like my neighbor in real life. Then I woke up, and it was actually happening in real life. My bedroom is right next to my unit's entrance, so the wall is shared with the condo hallway. So I hear it really loudly, all the banging, yelling, and raging. I was like, oh Lord, not again. I tried to ignore it, but then this guy started calling the woman a bitch. I used to think it was a younger man dating an older lady because of the way he treats her, but lo and behold, he calls her mom. This is where I'm just like, screw this. I can brush off the raging and banging, but this kid literally has no manners and is referring to his mother as a bitch nonchalantly, when she can literally have his butt kicked out and call the police. He's out of control, yelling at the top of his lungs, throwing things, and banging stuff up. I have no clue what he could be doing because the banging is so loud. But it never sounds like the lady is in pain or getting hit, so I'm not sure. At this point, I decided that I'm going to call the front desk security. I stepped into my balcony and called them to have someone come upstairs and check the situation out, because it's been an ongoing situation. As soon as I stepped back inside, all the yelling and banging has stopped. Around this time, the maintenance lady started vacuuming the hallway, so maybe they heard someone in the hallways and stopped. So the security came upstairs, hung around outside the door, literally pacing back and forth, right in front of the peephole for them to see for 15 minutes, while the lady is vacuuming. And then security called me to tell me they didn't hear anything. Honestly, think this was a stupid way for the security to approach it, but it is what it is. Now I feel kind of weird, because maybe security thinks I'm the nuisance from the way they called me. And honestly, I do feel uncomfortable and extremely irritated with the disturbances. I own my unit and pay so much damn taxes. I'm so freaking quiet and do not disturb anyone. I'm always at home because I run a small business from home and I have no social life other than family life. So I mind my own business in my tiny little unit. But it's causing me a mental disturbance because I feel conflicted with how to deal with the situation and how I should be taking action. And it also makes me reflect on a toxic period of my family life which is long gone, thank God. I always compare their situation to my past memories when I assess how I should respond to the situation. But I never used to bang stuff up or refer to my mother as a bitch. I used to get really angry and rage, yell my soul out when I felt hopeless and cornered. It was a phase of my youth which is long gone, and I hope it's just a phase for my neighbor too. I don't know if I'm letting my sympathy and empathy get the best of me. I feel so self-conscious for calling security, especially since they didn't hear anything by the time they came to check the situation out, and from the way they followed up with me about the situations, it was really dry. I'm double questioning myself if I did the right thing. I thought of even calling the police, but I would hate for that poor old lady to have even more strain and trauma in her family life. And if I call the police, it may affect my relationship with my building management and neighbors. I just feel so bad for that lady and really irritated by her son. But now I feel bad about myself too. I'm extremely irritated by her son's mannerism and lack of respect for her or the people living around them, such as me, a neighbor. I'm kind of upset with my building security now too. I feel weird, so I'm writing this post. It's been almost 2 hours since this situation happened. I don't know. This is a crappy situation. Every time these occurrences happen, I suffer from moral dilemmas. I don't know how much longer I can move forward with no action. Someone please help. Advise or something. Sorry for the rant. Hellfreezer's note. Well, when the noise is happening to such an excessive level, it sounds like it's coming from your own place, such as the banging on the door. Start recording. If you can document what's happening, it'll help you when you have to complain again, and it sounds like you're probably going to have to complain. That's really the best thing you can do. If the building's management isn't taking you seriously, then the police is probably the best place to go to, or perhaps your local councillor if it's a persistent thing and you feel no action's being taken. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Naughty Neighbours episode 35, and thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please do hit the like button and subscribe if you would. That helps the channel out greatly. It lets YouTube know you like the video, which then encourages them to tell other people that they should watch this video. You can also support the channel if you'd like by joining me on my Patreon page for as little as $1 or more a month. It is all very helpful. And you can also get yourself some merchandise from the Hellfreezer store, both of which are linked in the description. If you'd like, you can leave a tip for this or any other video by clicking on the heart with a $sign underneath. Okay, no more bits and bobs, so let's move on to Hellfreezer's question of the day. Do you have a favorite brand of lozenge for when your throat's kind of ouchy? Because I've sort of gotten in the habit of making sure I keep them stocked right now because I've been doing extra voice work and it's been very, very helpful. And I've discovered that I rather like the brand Jakeman's, #not spawn, but I don't know, maybe I'll contact them and see if they want to. So let me know what you think in a comment below. And before we go, let's take a look at the answer of the day from a previous video. And this answer came from Naughty Neighbours 33, and I believe it was about, have you had trouble with neighbours yourself? And today's answer comes from Toria Mansfield. I live in a very small rural town, and I have one very nasty neighbour. Sadly, while I have a very good reason to believe he is a thief who has broken into a storage unit I own multiple times, but unfortunately I have no proof. Without proof, the cops can and will do nothing. I'm very sorry to hear that, Toria Mansfield. Hopefully they either behave themselves or that you get that proof you need and steps can be taken to make sure they don't do it again. Thank you very much for your answer. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.